Gentlemen, we're back for episode 7. A lot of us think strength means knowing exactly what to say, knowing how to defend ourselves, knowing how to take control of a situation, knowing how to make sure nobody gets over on us. But I'm learning that real strength starts before the response. It starts whether I can stabilize myself first. Because if I'm angry, afraid, exhausted, rejected, embarrassed, overwhelmed, then whatever has happened around me already has access to my behavior. And once the external controls the internal, the response usually becomes reaction. That is where the damage starts. I used to believe that the main problem was what somebody else did. What they said, how they said it, what decision they made, what line they crossed, what they allowed, what they ignored. And sometimes the external was real. Like what I was feeling was real. Sometimes the behavior was wrong. Sometimes the situation did need to be addressed. But I'm learning that even when the issue is real, I can still respond in a way that makes everything worse. That part belongs to me, and that part belongs to you. The situation may explain why I feel something. It does not automatically justify what I do next. That is a hard truth. Because when you feel disrespected, misunderstood, dismissed, or powerless, your body will treat it like an emergency. Your heart rate changes. Muscles tighten up, teeth clenching. Your mind speeds up. You start building arguments. You start thinking about everything else that has ever happened. You stop responding to the current moment and start responding to the entire history behind it. And now the situation is no longer small. It has become a symbol for everything that you've been carrying. That is when you say too much, do too much, threaten too much, push too hard, or make a permanent decision from a temporary emotional state. I've done that before. I have reacted from anger. I have reacted from fear. I have reacted from rejection. I've reacted from the feeling that I was losing control. Excuse me. And in those moments, I thought I was protecting myself. But sometimes I was only proving that the external situation had complete control over me. That is what I'm starting to understand now. If I respond while internally unstable, the situation controls me. If I stabilize myself first, I get to choose who I am inside of that situation. That's the real strength. Not pretending I'm not angry. Not pretending something didn't hurt. Not acting like disrespect is acceptable, because it's not. But getting steady enough to decide what response actually serves me. There have been moments recently that would have gone completely different a few months ago. Not even gonna cap. Not because the situation changed, because I'm learning how to change my internal state before I make an external move. That's a bar. I'm gonna repeat that. Because I'm learning how to change my internal state before I make an external move. That is the work. The work is not becoming emotionless. The work is not becoming passive. The work is not letting everything slide. The work is becoming stable enough that anger does not automatically become aggression. Fear does not automatically become chasing. Rejection does not automatically become desperation. And frustration does not automatically become destruction. That takes practice. You gotta work on that. Because the first impulse usually feels honest. Feels justified. It feels powerful. But the first impulse is often just the loudest emotion in the room. And loud does not mean wise. That is why I had to learn to pause, which I've talked about in previous episodes. Not because I have nothing to say, because I need to know who is speaking. Pay attention. Is it the part of me that wants relief right now? Or the part of me that wants to protect tomorrow? That distinction matters because relief and strength are not always the same thing. Yelling may feel like relief. Sending a message may feel like relief. Making the accusation may feel like relief. Walking out may feel like relief. Making somebody feel what you feel may feel like relief. But relief can be expensive. It can cost you trust. It can cost you peace. It can cost you relationships. It can cost you opportunities. It can cost your own self-respect. Strength asks a different question. Strength asks, what outcome am I actually trying to protect? Not what do I want to prove. Not who do I want to punish. Not how do I make sure I'm heard. What outcome am I trying to protect? Am I trying to protect the children? The peace in the home? My own dignity? A necessary boundary? The truth? Tomorrow? Once I know the objective, the response becomes clear. That is why I believe internal stability has 3 parts. The first is stabilizing the body, because the body often reacts before the mind catches up. Breathing changes, muscles tighten, hands shake, jaws lock. You feel heat in your chest. And if you do not slow the body down, the body will start making decisions for you. So sometimes the first move is not talking. It's breathing, walking away, drinking water, sitting down, taking a shower, lifting weights, going outside. Doing something that helps the body understand that the moment is not an emergency. That is not weakness. That's preparation. The second part is stabilizing the thoughts. Because once emotion takes over, the mind starts building stories. You've probably been there. They never respect me. They're all against me. This always happens. nothing is ever going to change. I have to do something right now. Those thoughts create more pressure. And the more pressure you create internally, the more extreme the external response becomes. So I have to separate the fact from the story, which I talked about, I believe, in the last episode, separating the facts. What actually happened? What was actually said? What do I know? What am I assuming? What am I adding because of the past? That step alone can prevent a lot of damage. Because sometimes the event is real, but the meaning that you and I attach to it makes it 10 times heavier. Third part, stabilizing the objective. Sound like some military shit. What am I trying to accomplish? If the goal is safety, then my response should create safety. If the goal is clarity, then my response should create clarity. If the goal is peace, then my response should not create more chaos. If the goal is a boundary, then the response should be firm and clear, not cruel. That is where strength becomes visible. Strength is not just intensity. Strength is control. It's being able to feel everything and still choose the right move. I used to think power meant making sure nobody could disrespect me. Now I'm learning that power is not letting disrespect decide who I am. That is a different level of control, because anybody can react. Anybody can explode. Anybody can say the most damaging thing in the room. Anybody can make a situation worse. But it takes strength to feel the pressure and still move with intention. That is where the internal work matters. Because I can't control every tone, every decision, every conflict, every disappointment, every accusation, every boundary, every person. But I can build enough stability inside myself that the external no longer gets unlimited access to my behavior. That sentence has become real for me. The external should not have unlimited access to my behavior. Just because somebody is angry does not mean they control my tone. Just because somebody is distant does not mean they control my dignity. Just because somebody is unfair does not mean they control my character. Just because a situation hurts doesn't mean it controls my next move. I get to choose that. But only if I stabilize first. That is why the pause is so important. The pause is not indecision. It's not cowardice. It's not avoidance. The pause is where I take my power back. It's where I decide whether the moment gets my reaction or my response. It's where I decide whether I'm going to move from panic, rage, fear, pride, or wisdom. That is the difference between being controlled by the moment and leading myself through it. And that is what I want somebody watching this to understand. You don't have to become emotionless to become stable, my guy. You don't have to stop caring. You don't have to stop feeling anger. You do not have to stop being hurt, because I know it hurts. You just have to stop letting those feelings make every decision. The next time something happens and you feel yourself getting activated, do not start with the response. Please don't start with the response. Start with the internal. Ask yourself, is my body calm enough to respond? Are my thoughts based on facts? What outcome am I trying to protect? Then you move. Maybe the answer is to speak. Maybe the answer is to leave the room. Maybe the answer is to set a boundary. Maybe the answer is to document what happened. Maybe the answer is to just simply wait. Maybe the answer is to do nothing until you are clear. But whatever the response is, let it come from strength, not from the need to release pressure. That is the part that I'm learning. I'm learning that internal stability has to be built. It does not appear automatically. It is built every time I pause, every time I do not send the message, every time I refuse to match someone else's energy, every time I choose the facts over the story, every time I protect the peace without abandoning the boundary, every time I feel the emotion and still choose the right action. That is how stability becomes strength. Not in theory, in repetition. I'm not perfect. I'm working on this. As I'm telling you this, that's the whole point of this series. As I'm going through it, as I'm learning, I'm teaching at the same time, because I know it's somebody out there going through the same situation, and you will one day come across this video and have your aha moment. Because there will still be moments where you and I, we get hot, moments where you feel tested, moments where the old version of me and you wants to take over. But you know what? Now I recognize that voice. And I understand that every time I respond differently, I weaken the old pattern. Every control response becomes evidence that I'm changing, not because the external situations becomes easier, because they don't. Because I become stronger internally. That is the man I have to become. A man who does not need the world around him to be calm before he becomes calm. A man who does not need everybody to be fair before he can be disciplined. A man who does not need certainty before he can move with wisdom. A man who can feel pressure without becoming pressure. A man who can protect what matters without destroying everything around it. That is strength. Build the internal stability first, gentlemen. Then respond to the external from strength. Because the man I have to become does not respond from panic, rage, fear, or desperation. He stabilizes first. Then he moves. This is the man that I have to become.